Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar about student life and the student experience here at University West. My name is Ebba Thorolsen and I work at the International Office. Before we get started with the webinar, I just want to go through some small practicalities. If you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A and we will bring them up in the end and have a discussion about it. And if you have questions that is not necessarily regarding the webinar, I also have a colleague with me behind the scenes. Shout out to Veronica, who helps answering other types of questions not related to the subject of the webinar today. The webinar will be recorded and we will publish it on YouTube. And if you are signed up to our newsletter, you will get a note in your email when it's published. But without further ado, I would like to welcome Alyssa to get started with the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you can just get started and ask your questions and we will bring them up in the end.
Okay, wonderful. All right, hey everyone, I'm Alyssa. I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'm a student here at University West. So just a bit about me. I'm from Canada and I'm actually from London in Canada. If you didn't know that we had one of those too. So Canada's London is in between Toronto and the US border at Detroit. So right where the little red pin is on that map of Ontario, which is my home province. So I went to school in my hometown in London. I actually went to Western University in Canada. And I did my bachelor's there, and I also spent most of my career working there, supporting students, before deciding to go back to school. So I worked there in student support for almost 10 years, and during that time when I was working in student support, one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't get a chance to study abroad. So let's fast forward to the summer of 2024, so just less than 2 years ago, and I made my first trip to Sweden in the summer on vacation. And I absolutely fell in love with Sweden. I was in Stockholm for a little bit. I went to the ABBA museum there. I'm a huge ABBA fan, so that was a highlight for me. And then I also went to a few places north of Stockholm. We did some camping. I stayed at a friend's place. We went berry picking. And I really fell in love with the country, both Sweden in general, but the countryside where there was great access to nature, blueberry picking, being along the water and doing different water activities, but also being in the city for Stockholm. The public transportation was really great, which was quite different from where I live in Canada, where almost everyone drives everywhere, and we don't have as many different options for public transport, and they're not nearly as timely. But this all kind of led to me getting to the end of the trip, knowing that I would really want to come back to Sweden. And I started looking at different options for where I was going to study. So with that led me to University West. I was originally looking at programs in leadership because I always thought that's what I would do my master's in. But then I found my program in work integrated learning, and I was especially excited about that because at the time, back in Canada, I was working as a work integrated learning coordinator. So I was working with one of our faculties and doing different placements for students so they could get that work experience while still being at school, and now that's what I study. So within 1 year, almost to the date of ending my trip, I made the move to Sweden and started my time here at University West. So I'm studying my master's in work integrated sustainable development. That means the focus of my degree is in work integrated learning. So that intersection between learning and education and work, how people learn while they're at work and on the job and stay up to date, and all those kinds of things. And I also take some courses in sustainable development. So the first regret I had of my bachelor's was that I didn't get to study abroad, and now I'm studying in Sweden, so that's great. And the second regret I had was that I didn't do an internship, which is also what attracted me to this program, and I'm actually on internship right now. So an internship is a required part of my program. Right now I'm doing an internship in partnership with the University of Gothenburg, and I work with one of their art schools in their craft education, one of their schools, and I'm helping them develop an internship program there. So that's really cool for me to get that opportunity and be checking off some of those regrets that I had from my bachelor's. Now, something that I've noticed that's a bit different between my bachelor's and my master's here, and also some differences between my studies in Canada and my studies in Sweden, are the class sizes. So when I studied in Canada, I studied at a really large university. The size of my university is closer to the size of Trollhättan, so the city that I'm in now, as opposed to the size of University West. So it's quite a difference in terms of that. Back home, my biggest classes had maybe around 800 people. Now my biggest class has maybe closer to 130 people. So it's quite a lot smaller, and I would also say a little bit easier to ask questions in class, because it was a little intimidating to do that in a class of 800 for me. Now, some of my classes are also much smaller, like maybe 20 to 40 people, and there's also a lot more seminars and discussions with my classmates and with my professors. There's also a lot more writing, which is kind of different for me, as my bachelor's program was primarily test-based, and now I don't have any tests. I have seminars and essays, so that's been a big difference for me as well. When it comes to studying, something else that I've noticed is a little different between Sweden and Canada is how the study schedules for your classes are set up. So for my bachelor's, I always knew exactly when my classes would be. It would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 until 12 for the whole semester, if not the whole year, just as an example. But in Sweden, it can be a little bit different, with every week being a little bit different. Sometimes there are weeks where you have a lot of class, and sometimes there can be weeks where you have less classes. Particularly, sometimes you have less class when there's maybe an essay or a big assignment coming up. Also, something that is a little bit different is the diversity of people who are in the classroom. So in my program, it's very international. My classmates are from Nigeria, Kenya, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Germany, and we also have a few classmates from Sweden as well, although they're definitely don't make up a large portion of our class. Something I was really nervous about when I came here to be a student, and when I was in the same position as many of you, maybe having just submitted my application or starting to look into schools, was how old I was, because it had been over 10 years since I finished my bachelor's degree. So I'm in my mid-30s, and I was really nervous I was going to be by far the oldest person in my classes, but I'm right around the middle, I would say. At home in Canada, a lot of students will go right from their bachelor's to their master's. However, it's a little different here in Sweden, and also in my classes, there are people in their 20s and finished their bachelor's rather recently. And then there's also people in their 50s who've had a full career or even many different careers and now are coming back to school. This makes discussions really interesting because people come from different places, they come from different academic backgrounds, and they also bring a lot of different work and life experiences into the classroom, which makes the discussions really exciting. And it's really amazing not just to learn from my professors, but definitely from my classmates as well. Now, I also wanted to show some of my favorite places to study on the slides. So one of the first pictures was when I came here in September. It was actually, at least in my opinion, as a Canadian, quite warm still. So I was studying outside at the university by the picnic tables. The middle picture is one of my favorite spots in the campus library, right by the windows. It's always nice to get some natural light, especially in the winter when it is a bit darker. And if the sun comes out, I want to make sure I'm in the right place. And then the last picture is one of my first classes here at University West. So yeah, my first class, I think, after the introduction week. I prefer to study on campus just because I find there to be a lot of distractions in my apartment. I can always find something else to do other than study or do my readings. And I live quite close to campus, so I either come here to the library or one of the other places just around the buildings on campus to study. So I've also, there's a few different spots that you can see here. Something I really appreciate about University West campus is that there's lots of windows, as you can see, so lots of natural light, which I appreciate. And there's also quite a lot of green spaces inside, in particular buildings. So even when it's cold and winter and maybe a little rainy or snowy, there's still some greenery, at least on the inside in some of the buildings, particularly by some of the places that I like to stop and have a tea or a coffee with my classmates. So University West is in Trollhättan in Sweden, so it's close to Gothenburg, but it is definitely a smaller city. It's the smallest city that I've ever lived in. The city that I live in Canada is about 500,000 people. I also lived in Japan for a few years in a city of about 2 million people. So living somewhere that I think is closer to 50,000-ish people was a bit of a change for me. But I really like it because I still find that it's kind of like the best of both worlds. If you want to go to the city, Gothenburg is just a short train ride away, and you can take the train like right quite close to campus and get right there, which is super helpful. So if there's an event or if you want to go to some shops or a festival going on, it's really accessible to get to a bigger city. However, I really like being here because it's calm. We're right by the water, and University West campus, and even where I'm living, is just a short walk away to the water. There's lots of trees and paths and parks, so you can always get outside, go on a hike, that kind of thing, regardless of the season. Even in the winter, that's something that I like to get out and do. And yeah, it's really, I find it quite easy to get around. As I'd mentioned before, where I lived in Canada, you essentially needed a car to get anywhere, if it was within the city or to get to a neighboring city. There were some buses and some trains, but they were a little expensive, especially with the trains. They didn't have the biggest schedule or the most options. So it was a little more limited, especially if you didn't have a car. However, that's not a problem that I have here. I can walk or ride my bike to get to most places I need to be between the shops that are in the center of the city, which is really close to our campus and where I live. Or you can take a quick bus ride over to a bigger shopping area, a slightly longer bus ride to get to IKEA, I'll talk about that later, or a train ride to get to a bigger city like Gothenburg. Also, University's West campus is right by the city square, so sometimes they have different little festivals or events there, and it's literally right beside our campus. You just cross the road and you're right there, so that makes it quite accessible to see what's going on in the city, and not just what's going on for campus. For those of you who are maybe not as interested in living somewhere a little smaller, also I have classmates who live in Gothenburg and then they commute here. For me, I like being here and then going to Gothenburg to visit them. So you can find your balance depending on what kind of city that you want to be living in. Now, something that's really important in Sweden that I've come to learn is fika. So fika is, at first I thought it was just a coffee break, but it's so much more than that. It's a chance to take a pause with your classmates, with your friends, with your coworkers, have a little coffee or tea, and usually have a nice, often sweet snack. So going out for fika is one of my favorite things to do here, either by myself or with my classmates. And the pictures are some of my favorite fikas that I've had, though I could probably do a whole presentation just of the pictures of the delicious fika and treats that I've had. If you have a sweet tooth, Sweden is a great place to be. So with that, the one really big one you'll see is a cinnamon bun. It's honestly like this big. It was almost the size of a pizza. And you can get this at a particular cafe in Gothenburg. So my friends and I went to try that out. We split one of them between 3 of us for lunch. It was fantastic. And then some of them are from other little micro adventures that I've gone on. If you end up wanting to learn Swedish, which I would highly recommend, you can actually take some classes after your regular school classes here at the university. And if you join that one, they always have a fika break as part of it. It's embedded into the Swedish class. So you'll learn for a little while, you'll have a fika break, talk to your classmates, and then go back to your Swedish class. Also, something else that you can do as an international student is we have a standing fika and board games day run by our international student committee. It's on Tuesdays. We call it See You at 4. So you just show your student card, you come in, you get a snack and a drink. There's lots of board games for you to borrow, or it's just a chance to make friends, catch up with people, and meet up on campus. So having that fika pause is really about like conversation, community, and taking that break, and something that I really, really appreciate about living here. Now, it's not all about fika, though I do love that. If you're more into sports, something that I discovered pretty early when I was here was called the Fritidsbanken. So it's like a recreational library. So you can go there and you can borrow different sports equipment. And as you can see from the picture, they have a lot of stuff and they change it out between the seasons. One of the really popular items is bicycles, particularly in September when everyone's getting here and we're trying to get different things for apartments. But for example, one of the things that I tried out in the fall was roller skiing. I had never seen roller skiing. It's not really a thing, at least in my area of Canada. And they actually have a competition here in the summer. So when I moved, I was seeing people training for this competition, and I saw them do their race. It was so impressive. So I went to the Fritidsbanken and I borrowed the roller skis for a couple weeks. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be, particularly since I do downhill skiing, I do a little rollerblading, I do skating. I thought it would come more naturally. It did not. But that's what's really cool about it, is that you can try something for free, and then you can either extend your rental, just let them know you still have it, and if no one else is waiting, you can rent it for a little bit longer. Or if it's not quite the right fit, like roller skiing was for me, at least at that point in time, you can just take it back. More recently, I borrowed some cross-country skis. I also wasn't that good at that either, but it's great to give it a try. At home, if you want to try a new sport, you either have to pay to rent equipment if it's available, or you just need to buy it and see how it goes. So this gives you the chance to try out different sports or different kinds of recreational activities without having to financially have to pay for them and make a bigger commitment. Try it out, and if it's not for you, that's fine. You just bring it back and then maybe try something else. Something that doesn't require much equipment is hiking, and this is a really good area to be doing that. One of my favorite cafes is actually just a short hike away. So my friends and I will go, we'll cross the river, we do a short little hike through the forest, and then we pop out and we're in a more residential area where our favorite cafe is. And then after we have our fika, we can go back. This I found to be a really helpful part during my studies, particularly when you get into your exams or maybe larger assignments. It's really easy to just stay at home and not be in the sunlight, but it's always, every time I do it, I always wish I was doing it more. It's great to get outside and have a break. Even if it's winter, even if you come from a place that maybe doesn't have such a winter, getting out during winter can be one of the best things that you can do to stay active, to stay happy, and also help you kind of be refreshed so you can go back to your studies and get more work done instead of just pushing through and taking no breaks or not getting outside. And it's also really, really beautiful in all the seasons here. Right now, I was saying it's a little bit warmer, at least to me as a Canadian. It's still very much winter, but if it's snowing, it's really nice to get out and have a walk. Really cool when the river freezes over. The ice looks really cool and interesting. Even for me from Canada, the way it froze here was a little bit different, and all of us were taking lots of pictures, but it's also really beautiful in the summer, and I'm excited to have my first spring here as well and take it in during that season. So around town, there are also lots of different things to do. I'd mentioned IKEA before. So it's just in another smaller city over, and the international office also organizes a couple bus trips to go to IKEA so you can help furnish your apartment during the introduction weeks. So I definitely did those. It was a really fun way to get to know some people and also get some stuff for my apartment. And then also I've been there on my own before that, after that. Don't forget to try the Swedish meatballs. It's just like an iconic opportunity that you have to take, or you must. I would really recommend it. They were great. So yeah, go for that IKEA experience as an international student, or if you just like need to go get some things, it's a short bus ride away, so you can do that as well. If you're buying bigger items, you can also pay a fee to have them delivered right to your apartment. My apartment that I was living in wasn't furnished, so I took that option for bigger items like my bed and my couch. As I mentioned before, there are also like lots of little events that are happening around the city. I think sometimes people think it's so quiet and there's not that much going on here, but I would argue that you just need to know where to look and, put yourself out there, go on a little adventure. So I rode my bike to another area of the city. It was only 10 minutes away, but I hadn't been there. There was a little festival. I took my picture with this sheep character whose name I'm totally forgetting right now, but it was really fun. They also had some great secondhand shops that were at this market, but that's also something with Sweden in general. There are some secondhand shops that you can easily walk to in the area, or again, you can check different ones out when you go to Gothenburg or another city. If you like thrifting and secondhand shopping, Sweden is definitely a wonderful place to do that. I would say a lot of my furniture either comes directly from IKEA or it comes from a secondhand shop, and it's still IKEA. But the secondhand shop made that even a little more affordable, which is really helpful as a student. The last picture is actually just from a couple weekends ago on Valentine's Day. My friends and I went for fika, surprise, surprise, over in a neighboring city, Vänersborg. And they had some cute stuff up for Valentine's Day. We had our fika, and then we went for a walk right along the lake, which was really beautiful. So again, that access to nature and treats is something I really like about being here, and is a great study break. So far, I have been in Sweden for most of the major holidays that I would celebrate since moving here. So I wanted to show what some of those were like. So the fireworks was from New Year's Eve, and that happened right here in the city square. It was fireworks and a laser show. I'd never seen a laser show before, so that was really cool. And something else that I thought was cool was that they do it twice. So they did it once, maybe around 5 or 6 p.m., and then they did it again at midnight. I'm not really good at staying up late, so I went to the earlier showing, and that was nice to have the option, and it was absolutely packed. But again, super close to where I live, very walkable from my apartment, and a great way to experience something new with my friends. Also, something that's up, I believe, until this weekend here in the city are some really beautiful illuminations that are along the water. Most of them are animal themed. They're like with the moose or the butterflies. They have lots of different animals. They have a Mary Poppins umbrella and like a Cinderella. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting what that's called. That's okay. The carriage. The carriage from the Cinderella movie. So it's really beautiful to walk around. And that's something that's been up since late November. So again, a great chance to get out for a walk and maybe have a fika before or after. And then lastly, while not an official holiday, Halloween was really fun here. I went to a neighboring city called Bohus, and they have a fortress there. And my friends and I went to like a haunted fortress night. So it was lit up. They had people who were breathing fire. They had snacks. They had musical acts. And then we got to walk through the fortress. Some of it was just to explore like you would if you saw the fortress during the day. And then they also had the haunted part and the haunted walk, which was very, very scary. But as someone who loves Halloween, it was absolutely awesome. So if you just, keep your eye out, do a little research, I find that there's a lot of different things going on in the area and the surrounding areas, which can be great little micro adventures to go on just for a few hours, or maybe a day trip, depending how far you're going, to keep yourself entertained and, do a bit of travel while you're doing your studies. Now, Gothenburg is the closest big city to where we are here at University West. So I've been there many times for a lot of different reasons. One thing, if you stay here for over 12 months for studies, you'll most likely be eligible to get a personal number. That personal number gets you, it puts you into the Swedish system. It gets you access to lots of different things. But something cool that I wasn't expecting was I got a 10 or 12 day free pass from the local Västtrafik, so who does the transportation in this area. So I got a free pass for, 12, 14 days. So I got to go on a whole bunch of different adventures that otherwise wouldn't have been possible since 14 days of travel is not quite exactly on my student budget typically. But I went to Gothenburg several times to make the most of my pass. Also, that's when I went on my Halloween adventure to the fortress and some other illuminations and things around Halloween. Going to Gothenburg is great. They have an amusement park there, also very cool and spooky at Halloween. But also some of the pictures you'll see are from Liseberg, the amusement park. When you go there at Christmas, they have some really beautiful illuminations, a little winter market, and it's really beautiful to be walking around. I just enjoy walking around Gothenburg in general. There's cool different things for like public art. The central station itself is even pretty beautiful, depending on what you're used to. And I'm a big fan of going to the library and just checking it out. At the time that I got this free ticket, I had some assignments that were due, but I wanted to adventure and do my assignments. So I would go to Gothenburg, I would go to one of their libraries, explore that for a little bit, and then I would spend some time walking around so I could have the best of both worlds with studying and checking things out. Now, a larger adventure that I went on at the end of my first term this year was to Oslo with one of my friends. So Oslo by train is only about like right on 3 hours from here. And so this is how my friend and I celebrated making it through our first term of our master's. One other thing I'll point out with the terms is that they might be a little different than what you're used to. In Canada, I'm used to the term ending right around the winter break, so maybe just before Christmas. Then you have a couple weeks off typically, and then you start your new term in January. Here, it's a little bit different. The first term ends in mid-January, and then the next term starts. I found that timing very confusing to get used to at first. So I went on this Oslo adventure kind of mid-January. But again, we could take a train right here from the city, close to where I live, close to the campus, right into the central terminal in Oslo. We went for some different hikes. Of course, to the library, because I'm really into that. Lots of cool different public art displays, and also great food and that kind of thing. So again, there's some pretty accessible adventures with Gothenburg and Oslo being the two major cities that are close to here. Maybe Oslo and Stockholm are about like similar distance, so that's also something that you could do or look forward to. But just in the last few slides, I wanted to kind of go through some myths that I figured out were not true, and also some fears that I had when I was in your shoes trying to figure out, applying to schools, deciding if I was going to go, and then accepting my offer and being really excited, but also really nervous. So 3 of the myths that I was thinking about were that I was too old to be a student, that it wasn't okay to have a gap from my studies from my bachelor's to my master's, or that I shouldn't be studying something new, and none of these were true. Again, I'm probably in the middle kind of age range of my classmates, with some people being in their 20s and some people being in their 50s. If you're looking at your bachelor's, also, like, there can be a diversity in ranges of age there too. Also, it's okay if you have a gap in your studies. Like, if you studied something before and it's been a while, that's okay. That was definitely the case for me. It was about 10 years in between my bachelor's and my master's. And then also, it's okay to study something new. It does kind of depend on the requirements of your program. Some programs require a specific undergrad before jumping into them. But for me, my program was more flexible. So I studied medical science and psychology as my undergrad. Now I study work integrated learning and sustainable development. 2 very different things, but they kind of mirror my interests at the time. Some of the fears that I had were about making friends, academic writing, and being homesick. So for making friends, I'd recommend just kind of putting yourself out there. You've already put yourself out there and are moving to a new country to study abroad. So just kind of keep with that energy. During the introduction week, I would just recommend just talking to people. Like, if you're sitting beside someone in one of the introduction week presentations, if you go out to the tent to, do an activity or have some fika, just talk to people, because everyone's in the same situation. We're all new, we all came here from somewhere different, and we're all probably a little nervous and looking to make friends. So I just talk to a lot of people. I know it's easier said than done, but everyone is like looking to make new connections, so just try to put yourself out there. Also, something that can be helpful, especially as an international student, is to join the International Student Committee. So I actually am part of that. So I joined the International Student Committee, and right now I'm serving as the secretary. So I got really involved with it. So that means we're here to help support international students. We put on that Tuesday fika event. And also something really cool that I'm going to do starting this weekend with the International Student Committee is that they plan a couple trips to Sweden and also Norway. So twice each year they'll go to Sweden, twice each year they'll go to Lapland, so way up north in the Arctic Circle. So that's where I'm headed to this weekend, and I'm really excited and have my fingers crossed that I'll get to see some auroras. I'm really excited about that. But joining International Student Committee or coming to some of their events or meetings is a great way to get involved and make friends. Also, just going to the student union itself is a great way to get involved and make friends and that kind of thing. Something else I was really nervous about was academic writing. This is because my bachelor's was more about taking tests, and now my program is almost entirely evaluated based on writing. So I didn't have to write that much in my bachelor's, and then I was out of school for over 10 years. So I was really anxious about this. But there are a variety of different writing supports that the university offers. Some of them are even embedded in your classes. So there were some people from the different writing and language offices that came into class at a couple different times. So we had class time that was dedicated to academic writing and specifically geared towards some of the assignments that we were doing. We also had times when the library came into our class, which was helpful to understand some of their systems. And then outside of class, you can also book appointments both for writing support and also with the library. I found going to the library really helpful. During my first paper, I just went up to the front desk a bunch because I had a lot of questions about citations and referencing, and they were super helpful, which made me feel more confident going into my other assignments. Now, the last one that I was really nervous about was homesickness. Even though I had lived abroad before, I never thought I was going to live abroad again. So I was kind of at a different stage of life, and I was really nervous that I would, miss my friends and my family and comforts of home. And this is a really normal thing and a very real thing. It's not to say that I haven't been homesick. I definitely have. But to combat that, I would encourage you to kind of schedule out or plan out those calls with your family and friends back home. What I have a bad habit of is doing a lot of stuff and then feeling, missing home, missing my family, and then needing to talk to a bunch of people all at once. But I think it would be better if I, had that more regular support and just, more regular chats with people back home so you can, catch them up a little bit more regularly and touch base. Also, with homesickness, if you ever need to talk to someone beyond your friends here or your friends and family back home, there's other supports that you can take advantage of. There's counselors that you can talk to here. There's a university chaplain, and you can go and talk to him it's not just for spiritual or faith-based support, but you can just go and have a chat with him. He's really nice. So just know that in addition to more informal resources, there are more formal ones that you can take advantage of as well. Not just if you're homesick, but if something else is going on and you need, some more people to help, there's people like that to help you here. But to wrap it up, I just have my tips for where you are right now. So if you've applied and you're kind of waiting and having your fingers crossed for if you're going to get in or not, I'm rooting for you, but also I would encourage you to look at the requirements, not just of the university, but also the migration office, particularly if you're coming from outside of the EU, so you know what to expect, so you can kind of get things in order and lined up. So when you get your offer, you can move as quickly as possible to get things submitted and start working towards your residence permit card. So for example, it was kind of this time of year, instead of just focusing and stressing out on if I was going to get in or not, don't get me wrong, I did that too. I also did things like make an appointment to renew my passport because I knew I was going to need an updated passport before applying for my residence permit card. I wish I would have started looking into some of the banking information a little sooner rather than later because I had to move some things around in my accounts to get the right documentation together. And I felt really pressured to do that because I wanted to do it really quickly. It would have been better to start looking into that information now as opposed to scrambling once I got my offer of admission. I'd also encourage you to join a housing queue. So depending on where you're from, maybe this is a process that you've done before. It's not how we do things in my area of Canada, at least. So a lot of you will probably find housing through the university. A lot of my classmates did that, but some of us found housing on our own. So for example, a big housing provider in the area is called ADAR. And when you sign up to their system, you start to gather points in the queue. So every day that you kind of have an account or you do certain things, like you're gathering points in the queue. And for some different apartments, they might look at people who have more queue points first. So I wish I would have joined the queue a little bit sooner, just so I would have more points. It didn't end up being an issue, but you can always join today, and fingers crossed it all works out. But if it doesn't, some queues will cost money, a lot of them don't. So at least join some free queues, start accumulating points. Something that was really helpful for me and helped me feel confident in accepting my offer when I got it was connecting with students on LinkedIn. So I went there, I searched for their programs so I could kind of hear like, what's it like to study there? This can be a really good way to get more information about the program specifically. Because this presentation is more like general. So if you want to know more specifics about your program, try connecting with some students. For me, LinkedIn was the way that I did that. You might have another option, but just try to talk to someone who has recently studied in the program you're interested in. If I put this thing on here about thinking before you buy winter clothes. I say this because if you bring winter clothes or not is very dependent on your current climate. So for example, I'm from Canada. Winter where I'm from is actually a lot colder and snowier than it is in this region of Sweden. So I brought my winter clothes. However, my friends who are from more like tropical or super warm countries, their version of winter clothes would not suit a Swedish winter. In that case, waiting until you get here can be an easier decision. So you have like better winter clothes, because winter is very relative depending on where you're from. And lastly, I'd encourage you to kind of like manifest getting in here by maybe, practicing some Swedish, downloading a language app, doing something like that. You can definitely get by speaking English, but it's always great to speak the language of the culture that you're in. So that's it for me. Oops. We will not end the presentation. We still have time.
Thank you so much for a great presentation. You make me want to start studying here.
Excellent. You should.
Yes, maybe I should. So I see we have gotten a lot of questions already. So some of them are more regarding specific programs and scholarships. We try to answer them as good as we can in the chat. And I also want to tell you, if you don't feel like you've gotten the answer you were looking for, or if we didn't have time to answer your question specifically, please email us, and we are always ready to answer your questions here. Either scan the QR code or email us directly on the email address. But then I would love to start with a question. You mentioned you had an internship currently.
Yes.
And you also have work experience from other countries,
yes.
From your own country and other countries maybe as well. Did you work when you were in Japan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So how would you describe a Swedish workplace? Is that a different cultural experience than what you were expecting or have experienced before?
Yeah, so in some ways I would say yes. So I know I mentioned fika a lot of times throughout this presentation, but there's definitely a lot of fika at work, or not a lot, but my internship is partly remote and partly in person. So when I'm on site, I feel like someone's always asking me do you need a coffee? Do you need a tea? And then also eating together at lunch is very common. I feel it's in my old workplaces, sometimes people would eat together, but often we were all kind of scattered doing our own thing, or someone was finishing something up over lunch. When I was working in Japan, it was a little bit different, and I had shorter shifts, so we just had really fast breaks. But kind of taking that pause to gather and talk, share stories over lunch is kind of how it's a little different at my internship. But it's also been a great way to get to know my colleagues and also feel a more part of the team, even though I've only been at my internship for about a month at this point.
Yeah. Okay, good to hear. I've gotten a question, we've gotten a, or maybe you've gotten a specific question again regarding connecting with other students. Can you repeat what you did? We also, of course, can recommend you apply, like asking through the university, and we can help you find a person. But you had a great tip on how you did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely message the university and they can help link you up with someone. But I went on LinkedIn. So the way I did it was I went on to the University West page, and there's like an alumni button. So you can click on the alumni and you can like search for the program or other keywords. And I did that not just for University West, but other places that I had applied to, just to learn broadly about living in Sweden, but to learn more about the programs that I had applied to. And based on some of those conversations, it actually like switched how I ranked some of them. It's what kind of pushed my sustainable development choice to number one, which was through conversations with current students and students who had recently graduated. So I did it through LinkedIn. I feel like that might depend on where you're at in your career. Like if you're entering into your bachelor's, that might not be as helpful. So maybe sending an email or looking maybe for like an online community or something like that. But for me, since I've been in my career for a little while, using LinkedIn was the way to do that.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, actually. So you mentioned that the classroom experience is a bit different. A lot of seminars, a lot of discussions. So what is you've studied for a bit over one semester now.
Yes.
So what are the benefits or cons, maybe? I'm open to cons as well, of that type of study experience.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely more pros than cons, at least in my opinion. What I found is when we're in a seminar, the first one I was so nervous for, I had no idea what to expect, but it was just kind of a discussion, and it was cool to see how for example, we would be talking about a few texts that we had been given to read. And there were some of them where I was totally unclear of a particular topic. So talking to my classmates or getting their perspective was really helpful. Also, as we kind of go through this seminar, our professor is walking around. So if there's like a common theme or a common problem, they can also address that all together. Sometimes we would have seminars and we would workshop through different things, like we're working on an assignment, we're at this stage, you kind of share a bit with your classmates, and they gave me some great directions to go in that I wouldn't have considered. The only time I would say the maybe only con of seminar is sometimes, at least for me as a very like outgoing, kind of loud person, sometimes maybe I have to go first because everyone else is like being really quiet, and I don't always want to go first because I'm nervous too. I'm just kind of loud about it, but like that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's really like an interesting perspective. I've never studied abroad, so that's the only thing I know. But I can imagine it being a big change.
Yeah, totally.
So this isn't a question, but we gotten shout-outs both to Veronica answering all the questions. I want to mention it. Great job, and also to Alyssa for a great presentation.
Cheers.
So I want to bring that up as well in between the questions. What was the biggest culture shock? Like I imagine Canada being quite similar culturally in many ways, but still there might be some big differences.
Yeah, I can think of two off the top of my head. The first one is like the ease with which Swedish people can switch to speaking English is unlike anything I have ever seen before. It happens like in seconds they can switch to it. This actually can make learning Swedish and practicing your Swedish out there actually a little challenging at times, but it comes from a really beautiful place. But I have never seen people be able to switch languages with such ease and do it so quickly. And, you know, it is really, really helpful, except when you really want to practice your questions and you just needed a little more time. But again, it's a good thing to have. In many ways, Sweden and Canada are quite similar. The one thing I would say is Swedes are a little bit more quiet in communal spaces. So for example, like in Canada, if we're in a line, if we're in an elevator, I'm not going to say all Canadians, but Canadians like myself, or at least kind of chatty Canadians are going to start talking to people, that kind of thing. And I would say that happens a little bit less here. So just like slightly more, not shy or introverted, but just like culturally it's a little bit different. But it's, again, it's just different. It's not like bad or good. It's just different, yeah.
Yeah. Something I experienced, I've been to India a couple of times, I've been to Kenya, and like people generally speak in those countries, people speak, they have a lower voice, they speak a bit more carefully, but still the public spaces are so much more loud. So it's a different balance of
Totally.
when you speak and how you speak.
Yeah. I feel like I must be really, really loud here. So I apologize to the Swedes that are here, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah, I'm loud too. My mom made me go to get a hearing test, but I'm just loud.
Just who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I understand.
So you seem to do a lot of fun activities.
Yes.
Do many of these cost money, or is it easy to find affordable activities?
Yeah, like some of them cost money and some of them don't. A lot of them are free. Like if you're going hiking or if you're going to like a little market or a festival, that's kind of up to you if you buy something or not. Just like window shopping, walking around can be quite enough. I would say for most of my adventures, maybe it's just like the train or bus fare. But yeah, there's definitely ones. It's more accessible than I thought it would be, especially from where I'm at in Canada. Like if you don't have a car, it can be hard to get to a lot of places. So there's a lot more happening around here that you could just walk to, or definitely no shortage of free options or low cost options.
Yeah. You mentioned being a part of the student union.
Yes.
We have some discounts and stuff like that as well, right? If you're a part of it.
Yes, absolutely. So if you are a student union member, and many of you, if you are coming from a non-EU country, that means you're a fee-paying student, and then you are automatically part of the student union, which is great because I would encourage you to join anyway. But they have partnerships with a variety of different businesses. For example, my favorite place to get pizza, Sour Cafe, shout out. They offer a student discount. You just have to remember to show your student card. That's the hardest part. Sometimes you've already paid and they're like, no. But yeah, that definitely can make things a little bit more accessible.
Yeah. So what are some other, you mentioned some activities hosted on campus, the fika on Tuesdays and stuff like that. What are some other student union activities you can join?
Yeah, totally. So there's the student pub that is every Thursday. So it starts around 5 o'clock. So people can go there just to, like, you can go there and order food, you can have a drink, you can just meet up with your friends. Sometimes there'll be like a quiz night or something else will be going on there. So that's like every Thursday. Between the kind of general student union and also the different committees within the student union, for those of you from somewhere else, like maybe like student council or student government would be more of like what you might call it. But there'll be different events. So for example, another committee this weekend, they did kind of like a murder mystery night. Someone else did an escape room recently. For the student union, different committees have like an overall and they're dyed different colors. So mine is yellow for the International Student Committee, and you can get different like cute patches to put on them. So an activity coming up is like a sewing night. So you can just go to the union, sew your patches, or, you know, hang out, bring something crafty. So there's definitely a mix of activities depending on like what you're into, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I know we have a lot of international students and students in general, of course, also that is a bit worried about alcohol culture and consumption, and especially like if you're not drinking for religious reasons or whatever reason. How would you describe the alcohol culture and in the union and maybe in Sweden in general, depending on your experience?
Yeah, well, I don't drink at all. So I found no shortage of things to go to. At the events I have gone to, like at the student union, there's always non-alcoholic options. I was actually really surprised. I went to kind of at the end of the introduction week, there was kind of like a more, not formal, kind of formal event, Slusballen. And they had like multiple options of non-alcoholic wine. And I was just really, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting I was gonna have to drink water or pop or something. But having a red and a white non-alcoholic option was really cool for me. So yeah, like if you don't drink, just know that that's not a problem. Like there's kind of like a mix of people who do and don't. But like more people than I was expecting for a wide range of reasons who don't.
That's really good to hear. I know that that is something we should be very clear about in the communication. For example, the inslussningen, the event we had in the beginning of the semester. That is great to hear.
Yeah, totally. You don't like. A lot of them are like there's barbecues, there was bowling, there was karaoke, which was my absolute favorite. There's lots of different events, but yeah, there's definitely like there's not a pressure to drink, and there's always a non-alcoholic option. And some of the events are like it was just like a barbecue at noon, like there was no alcohol there.
Yeah, that's great. So how would you describe like student-teacher relationship, and not relationship, I don't know if that's the correct word, but like communication, vibe?
Yeah, oh, I meant to talk about this, but I forgot. So something that's different here than at least when I was doing my bachelor's was like the teachers are, I would say they're more accessible, partly in kind of like Sweden is like less hierarchical than...
That's such a difficult word.
I know, right? Even for me in my first language. But so for example, like at home, I would call them like professor, either in email or in person or doctor. But here you like talk to your professors or like everybody by their first name, which is different from back home when I was a student. And yeah, like it's quite like open and conversational if you have questions, in class, outside of class, that kind of thing. So it seems like quite like an open environment to ask questions, but kind of accessible from the lack of hierarchy.
Yeah. So we're soon ending, just a couple of minutes left. So if you have any more questions specific to the webinar, I highly encourage you to ask them now. And if you have any other questions not related to the subject of the webinar, contact us via this email. You can always reach us there. Another thank you. We're so happy that it's appreciated. So it's soon spring.
Yes.
What do you look forward to the most? What will you not miss about winter?
I'm looking forward to seeing flowers. I'm looking forward to more hours of daylight. Though we're definitely like on the come up, which is wonderful. I'm also excited. This will be my first spring in Sweden, so it's the only season I haven't experienced yet. So I'm excited to see what it looks like here around Easter, like with the colorful, are they like feathers? Or...
Yeah, some people have them in their gardens and stuff.
Yeah, we don't do that at home. So I'm excited to see some of the like spring traditions and also early summer. I moved here in late summer, but I'm excited for midsummer. Yeah. As well. So yeah, some of the different cultural events that will happen between now and then.
Yeah, I look forward to it too very much. Now that it's getting lighter, you can feel it's coming soon.
The vibe is shifting.
Yeah,
I like
it.
I love winter too, but yeah,
spring is coming.
Spring is great.
Yeah. So final question from me. Can I get oh yes. How can I find my way as an international student to the University of West if admitted? Like maybe practically arriving here? How did you arrive?
Yeah, so when I arrived, I flew into Gothenburg airport. I had something I had to do with migration, so I actually stayed there for a couple days so I could like do my scanning or something. And then I came to Trollhättan by train. And I actually moved a little early, but if you wait and you move when most students are moving, there will be people at the train station and at the bus station to help guide you. I actually ended up still interacting with these people because I made a short trip to Stockholm right before. So I came back, and that's actually how I met actually a couple of my greatest friends. We were sitting across from each other on the train from Gothenburg to Trollhättan. So the person I went to Oslo, I did that with, and then someone who's actually in my classes and part of my study group, I met her that way too. So there's people there to help you, but it's quite straightforward.
And you can see it like on the train. I live in Gothenburg and commute to work, but every morning you can see people during the start of the semester with their big bags. It's usually a sign that there are international students arriving. So it's quite easy. And yeah, like you said, straightforward, I hope.
Yeah, totally. I didn't have, like, if you just ask someone, people are quite helpful. And at the Gothenburg train station, there are some people, there's like an information desk, and there's also some people who work for the different train lines in like, I think they're in like yellow vests. So you can go up to them and ask. So I've done that as well.
Yeah. That's really good. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for a great webinar. Obviously, it's not me thinking that. We got a lot of positive reviews in the chat already. Thank you so much. And thank you, Veronica, again, for answering all the questions. And if you have any further questions, remember this email address and reach us there. And if you want to watch this great webinar again, you can find it on YouTube, hopefully in the end of the week. Thank you so much.